everybody. We are going to get started. Thank you so much for coming out. And I think we have more city staff and presenters than we have attendees, but we are online. So always remember that you can go back and watch this. You can share it with a neighbor or a friend. And I just really appreciate people spending their evening with us tonight. I would like to quickly welcome our wonderful partner here with the Squirrels, Carney, to officially welcome us as the host.
Thank you very much. Hello.
You have to hold it.
Far be it from me to not have to use a microphone anymore, right? Welcome to the Diamond. Welcome to tonight. It's great to be here with our great friend and councilperson Jordan. She's been a great friend to me personally and a friend to the Squirrels, and we appreciate her very much. I'm going to be brief, which any of you ever heard me talk know that I'm probably not going to be brief, but I'm trying to be brief and welcome you here to the ballpark. Just give you a quick little update. We did start our season last Tuesday night. Is today Tuesday? No, today's Wednesday. Sorry, I'm semi-retired now, so I'm not used to being at the ballpark at 6 o'clock at night anymore, okay? Used to be at home by now. And we had our sellout, another sellout for opening night. It was our 14th, Anthony, consecutive sellout on opening night, so a tremendous streak that we have going for that. And by the way, I want to introduce Anthony Opperman, our Chief Marketing Officer, to the back. Ben Terry, our Chief Revenue Officer, is in the back as well. Jordan Hook is back there. So Jordan makes sure all our she's there. You trying to get away from me, Jordan? No, I'm going to introduce you. So, but without the staff here, we wouldn't be the success that we have been. We love it. Anthony and Ben have been here since 2010, so original team members here. I mentioned the opening night sellout. The other 5 games, we welcomed over 43,000 fans to the Diamond in the first 6 games. So, the last 2 years, we've led the AA in minor league baseball in attendance, which is a tremendous accomplishment in a building that was built during the Reagan administration, like I like to say. So the staff and our fans and our partners really deserve all the credit. A couple of things that I thought about earlier today. Since we arrived in 2010 for our first season, we have now sent just under 90 players to the big leagues. Have gone from Richmond to Major League Baseball, which is a huge number. And besides that, we've literally made millions and millions of memories for people of all ages, all throughout this region. And Megan Anstead, who's not here, just is finishing up our reading program, where over 65,000 kids were reached with bookmarks and promoted and asked to read books to come out and celebrate here at the ballpark. So things like the reading program, Nutsy and Natasha doing over 500 appearances in the community on an annual basis. When we came here, I remember saying, we don't want to be just a baseball team. We want to be an integral fabric in this community 12 months out of the year. And it's because of our tremendous staff and the support of Lou DeBell and our ownership group that has occurred year after year after year. We're excited about our future. We're excited about this season as well. And we appreciate everything that y'all do for us as fans. And we love Richmond, and we thank Richmond for loving us back. It's a very, very, very wonderful relationship. So thank you very much and welcome, and thank you again, Catherine.
The Squirrels truly have been terrific.
You gotta hold the button.
I know, I told you that. The Squirrels really are truly great partners. Maybe there's another mic for, if you can get the Mariah hooked up on the next one. Anyway, so yes, absolutely, the Squirrels are terrific partners.
Sure.
And we're going to move on to the next portion of our agenda. We've got Mariah White here, our school board representative. And I'd love to mention, hear from Carney about the reading. And if you haven't been here on RPS night, when all those kids who earned their free tickets come with their families, it's a lot of fun, and that is one of my favorite things about coming here, seeing the families and people from all over enjoying and making memories like I did with my dad as a kid. Mariah, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to say good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Just coming straight from work, so I'm a little rushing, but I have the latest and greatest information from every principal in the second district. And I'm going to start off with Fox Elementary. Fox Elementary, they have a parent tour April the 24th at 9 a.m. It will be a virtual town hall, and it's on the rebuilding of Fox. May the 9th, 7 p.m. That would be May the 9th at 7 p.m. And we don't want anyone to forget the Strawberry Festival on May 11th from 11 to 4. That is a big fundraiser for Fox Elementary. We also will have the 5th grade moving on ceremony on May the 30th at 10 at Dogwood Middle School. And what's coming up next is teacher appreciation and staff appreciation. And we really do appreciate our staff and teachers in RPS. And Fox is collecting gift cards from anywhere, any denominations to pass out to staff. And Teachers Appreciation is May the 6th through the 10th. I'm gonna move on to Carver Elementary. Although they gave me a letter today, but I'm not gonna read this letter. I'm just gonna briefly give out the pointers. They would like to thank Virginia Commonwealth University and the local Kawanza Club of Richmond. If you go over to Carver right now and you look in the back of their playground, the blacktop has been done. So they did a map and they did keyboards. They did a lot of literacy stuff for our children at Carver. And it looks really good. And they're a partnership with us at Carver Elementary, and we will be celebrating Special Read Across American on March the 18th. So she wanted everyone to know March the 18th, they were joined by the First Lady, Susan Yorkin. They are a partnership also at Carver. They come every 2 weeks and they read to the children K through 2nd grade. And that is, our K through 2nd graders doing a great job. You will be surprised how many of our kindergartens can read basic words now. So that is doing a great job. Also, Carver Scholars, they presented their original artwork at the Artworks art exhibits last week. So if you go up there, you may see some Carver students. We do have some artists there. Carver graduation is May the 28th at 9 a.m. And to let everyone know, RPS high school graduations will be May the 29th and 30th. They will be held at the Convention Center and Virginia Union. Virginia Union on the 29th and the Convention Center on the 30th. Now I know everybody wants to hear what's going on with Fox Construction, the building of Fox Construction. So I'm going to give you heads up, and I just got this information about 20 minutes ago. So I called the manager, the building manager, and we are right on schedule. We're on target for 2025. Right now, they're in the basement. They're doing the rough ends and the ceiling, doing a lot of framing down there. We already have the permits for the electrical, plumbing, and the mechanical. So the main permits are already been approved, and some inspections have been going on. Dominion has been engaging us, as well as the gas, because we had to put an application back in, make some comments for the electrical, and also the fire sprinkler, and we paid that fee, I think they said yesterday. So we are tracking on that. Right now, they just poured some concrete slab. They pulled back some of the slab, so now we will have a new sanitary sewer at Fox. All of the exterior windows have been removed and they've been sent to the restoration shop. With the slashes also have been removed. And they started on the second floor, the second level for that. So the question that I ask is, most of the renovation is 90% inside. So some people may say, well, you can't really tell if anything is going on right now because they are inside. 90% of it is inside. But you will see something different as you go in at the end of May. You will see the roof. We're trying to get that roof started in the middle of May. So we're on target for 2025 for Fox Elementary to open. What's going on at RPS board? So let me tell you what's going on at the board. We have already submitted our budget to the city council, and normally we are $5 and $6 million short, as we all know. So we're waiting for the state's budget. The next thing is, if we don't receive that, last year we had to cut back some of the things that our children really need, some resources. And our children in Richmond Public Schools need all of their resources. Right now, I have one more school that I didn't mention, is Richmond Alternative School on Lee Street. We're reforming that whole entire school, which is greatly needed. Years, I can say years, we have been concentrating on their academics. And by me going there on Fridays, I see that. We've been concentrating on their behavior. We have behavior specialists, but our children comes there supposed to be for 45 days. We have children there that is there 100, 200 days, and they're not on the same curriculum as the school that they just left. So that bothers me a little bit, and so I had to say something on the board about that, and we're going to reform that. We're also going to rename the name, and I'm so glad that Janice Allen is here. She's in the back. She's Jackson Ward's president. She has adopted Richmond Alternative School, the Jackson Ward area, so they will be a part of the naming with the students. The uniforms will probably change. Everything in that school should change. Hopefully we get the resources we need. At that school we need intensive clinical help there. And I can tell you in my 4 years in this school, and in the neighborhood and in the community, because the community has seen in the last couple of days, we've had a lot of homicides that exist. And in 4 years, I have been to a lot of funerals and a lot of vigils. I didn't sign up for that, but I have been going. And most of the homicides that you have seen, they have went to that school. Out of the 7 the other day, I know 3 of those students. 3 of those students. And so that's why I was at the press conference, because when they said Richmond Alternative, I support my schools wholeheartedly, and the principals. I have great leadership at Fox and Carver, but we have to reform Richmond Alternative School. It is a behavior school, and sometimes when you go in there, you'll see students getting restrained, but they need to be academics. They have to have the academics. When they go back to their schools, they may not have the same amount of credits that they need. They may be below credits. What I'm trying to do is make sure that they go to the technical center and have a trade, because we have some intelligent children over at RAS, and we have to do better at Richmond Public Schools. The next thing on our item at Richmond Public Schools, probably everyone has heard, we are looking for another board member. Mr. Young at 4th District, he resigned. You may have heard some of it on the news. I don't want to say anything that could incriminate me, but I'm going to say what has already been on the news. That was due to inappropriate behavior. we did have a parent in the Richmond Public Schools put a complaint. And when we put a complaint, we do investigate it. And the reason why we had to have a third party, and everybody's asking me that, why we had to have a third party to investigate it, is because he's an elected official. So by that parent, who's also is the employee at Richmond Public Schools, put a complaint. And with that third district investigation, because that complaint was sexual harassment, which you probably already heard. And when the attorney came back, it was not found as sexual harassment, but some of the things coulda, if perspective spoke. And in that time, the board, we had just had our meeting on Monday, and Tuesday it came out. He let it out. He also let out the report that wasn't supposed to be put out. Some of the report, not all the report was put out, but some of the report was put out. And the thing that bothered me the most is that the parent of that child had to find out the same time you all found out. So we'll be going back into close again. This Monday is our school board meeting, and we will be updating the policy, because the policy does need to be updated. Whether he's on the board, whether I'm on the board, or anyone on the board, there are some things that are not tolerated. No one wants their child to be touched. Nobody wants their child whispering in their ears and different other things. No one wants those actions. Those are zero tolerance. For me, they are. I have 2 children, and I know I would not accept that very well. But to make a long story short, to make it sweet and only give you what I can give you, that is what happened. Most people were saying that he was cleared. No, he wasn't, because we were supposed to go back in this Monday, which we still will. We'll probably just document, and we'll update the policy. So, if anybody have any questions, please ask me. I know somebody got one.
Any questions for school board member White?
I have just one. Are they replacing the cupola?
On the roof at Fox?
I think they're working on it. He was telling me that they were, let me get the glasses.
Board Member White, before the recording, you might just repeat the question.
Are they replacing the Cooper? Let me make sure, I want to make sure that we will be replacing everything in there, but I don't think that they can revise it, or he said that they filled the old mechanical room, but he didn't say anything about the Cooper.
All right, thank you.
Do you have a question? Oh, no, you turned around. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. If you have any questions for me, just let me know or write me an email. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. And next up, I'm going to welcome our Director of Public Utilities, April Bingham. And you've done a great job with a very difficult assignment. And I'm very pleased to say that we've had a lot of hiring events. I think, momentum is really strong under your leadership. And thank you for coming to provide some updates on the department.
Thank you so much. Oh, I can press the button.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. Good evening, everybody. So, as Councilmember Jordan said, my name is April Bingham. I serve as the Senior Director for the Department of Public Utilities. And some may differ and some may think differently, but I think I have the most beautiful job in the city, despite our challenges. I've heard Mr. Parney speak about the squirrels and how they sell out tickets. We are responsible for every toilet that's flushed in this place. We're responsible for all the drinking water that they consume in this place. And then I heard Ms. White come up and talk about the Richmond Public School System and how they are planning to rebuild Fox Elementary. I heard her call out the gas line. I heard her call out the sanitary sewer. That is us working for the city of Richmond. So I have with me tonight some of my, I was gonna say classmates. Some of the, they act like classmates sometimes, but some of the staff is here. So I want to start by saying, if you have any issues with your bill, timely and accurate billing for water and gas services, we have people here tonight that can take that information from you and work through those issues for you. You don't have to call our line or wait to get through to us on a phone line or through an email. We are here. This is not working. Can you hear me? Yes. Wonderful. Let's try that one. Okay, if not, okay. So you can also talk to one of the staff members that's in the back of the pavilion this evening. They're more than happy to help you. When Councilmember Jordan talks about hiring events and things of that nature, I no longer talk about the pandemic. The pandemic is no longer guiding our lives, but we are still impacted by some of the effects of it. We have been blessed enough to be able to hire a lot of people inside of the Department of Public Utilities. But as I tell people, you may come to work, but you don't come too ready to work. We have to train people. And so we've been spending a lot of time over the last several months training employees, getting them up to speed so that they can too provide you with that great service. I have just a few updates tonight that I wanted to talk about. Is anybody here from the Hartshorn community? No? So we had Richmond Gas Works, our director, Daniel Reifenberg, is here. If there was someone here from the Hartshorn community, I wanted to just give an update on where we are with some of the concerns that came out of that district regarding some gas work that we were doing. And it's really about locating services in connection with Miss Utility. The residents in the area, they saw a lot of trucks and a lot of movement. And so we've been working directly with their council or their president, HOA president, to be able to give them information on that. So no one's here tonight, so we'll keep moving on that. We have a lot of manually intensive processes, and over the next year to 2 years, we're gonna be converting from manually intensive processes to a lot of technology and upgrades within our systems. Our billing system is outdated, it's antiquated, it's time to be replaced. So we're working on an RFP right now that will replace the system and give us better service, bells and whistles that we have not had for quite a number of years. And so we're excited about that. But in the meantime, we've had trouble answering our phones in a reasonable time frame. But we've also been able to work with some contracted services to be able to bring in some staff, augment our staff. And by doing that, we've been able to cut down some of our whole call time, as well as improve our speed of answer. And I'm really happy to say that that is a concerted effort between the staff that we have on board and those that are now focusing on how do we increase our service to you as a community. And so those are some good things I wanted to talk about. I'm coming up next. So Dan said tell you about my HQ. So I did some research just over the last week, and we all know we're having problems with the post office. Everybody knows that. That's no secret. In 2021, we still had about 40,000 customers that were paying us with a personal check and sending it through the post office. That number has since gone down to about 21,500 today in current 2024. And so we've implemented a new program called My HQ. It's an online application that allows you to make your payments online, free of charge. You can get up to 36 months of your previous bills for your viewing history. You can also pay your bill online, view your bill online, and it's really a nice service. We thought that we would struggle to get people to convert, but we went live in February, the end of February, and as of yesterday, we have close to 14,000 people enrolled. So it's an assurance of not having to worry about where your checks are if you're paying that way. It's also an opportunity to be able to see your bills, for, up to 36 months, that's 3 years. And so we invite anyone who wants to be a part of that service. You can see one of the agents in the back, and they will gladly walk you through that. The other thing I wanted to bring up very quickly, we do a lot of work in the city, planned and unplanned work. And because we have so many different utilities under one umbrella, we could have a gas leak happening in the Hartshorn community. We could have a water main break happening on Broad Street. We could have a sewer lateral collapse on Forest Hill Avenue. We've got all these competing priorities. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about a new application we have called Civic Ready. It's easy to enroll, and it allows you to stay up to date on where we're working, how long we're working, and why we're working. And so I don't think we brought any of these tonight, but I'll be more than happy to share. I have 2 copies of this if anybody wants it. But registration is easy. You would simply go in and put your contact information and how you wish to be contacted. Phone, email, text. And so you will get information about that planned or unplanned event, and then you'll get more information once that planned or unplanned event is over. And so we felt that this was necessary because our trucks are all over the city. We're always chasing a utility, water, wastewater, stormwater, gas, and sometimes streetlights. So it's important to bring this information right to your door. Also, before I take my seat, just want to remind everybody, we do a letter, a customized letter to all of our customers every 90 days. And I've been doing this since March of last year. And so we're getting ready to do one for June of 2024. And hopefully you all are receiving that letter with your bill. If you don't, those letters are on our website at rva.gov/public-utilities. And you can see all of those. Those letters are very important because they identify for you and communicate to you what we're doing and how we're doing it. There's a lot of information out there about our new billing system. There's a lot of information out there about our new technology track. There's a lot of information about there just where we are in all of our operations. You're going to soon hear about 2 more critical programs that are headed your way, and one would be our meter replacement program. The meters that we are billing off of today, gas and mainly water, they are nearing their useful life. And so soon, probably in the month of May, we're going to start changing out meters over the city. We will do it in a systematic fashion. We will do it based on age, and we will keep you up to date on how we're doing that. The other one that you're going to hear a lot about soon will be our lead service line replacement program. And so the Environmental Protection Service has said that we must be a lead-free city by 2035. And so the Department of Public Utilities, in concert with the city, have been working very hard at our program since 2018. And we'll be bringing you more information about where we believe those lead lines exist today, how you can help us to identify if we have an unknown lead service line pipe, and how we can go about getting assistance for those that need it to be able to upgrade those lines. We're here, we'll be in the back of the room. If you need us for anything, feel free to reach out. We'll share our contact information, but we're so grateful for the opportunity to come tonight and share just a little bit of what we're doing inside of the Department of Public Utilities, as I have the best job. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Director Bingham. And I have to say, it's very exciting. I got a text message about my DP bill. So technology, we're getting there, Richmond. I'd like to now welcome up our CAO, Lincoln Saunders, who's going to do the presentation on the budget. Has everyone had an opportunity to grab one of the budget booklets? Okay, great. We'll get one to you. If you haven't, just raise your hand. And if someone from the squirrels could turn the overhead lights off, I think that'll help us with the slides. This will be a presentation using the screen. If anyone is interested in moving up a little bit closer while we transition to this next part of the program, that'll be a good time to move forward. Thank you. Hi. Thank you so much for coming, CAO Saunders. I know everyone in the city is really busy. We appreciate you and everyone else who's made time tonight to extend your workday to interact with our constituents. And we are recording this for our YouTube channel. As you stand about right here, I think it's probably a good spot. All right, thank you.
Warming up.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
As Council Member Jordan said, my name is Lincoln Saunders, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Chief Administrative Officer for the City of Richmond. We have a lot of great members of the city team here in the back and otherwise, and I just want to say all the folks here tonight are on salary, so this is just extra time that they're putting in for the benefit of Richmond. So thank you, Ms. Bingham, for being here. Thank you to Sharon Ebert, who's going to be talking to you about the Diamond District updates here in a little bit. And we just appreciate all of our city team who showed up tonight to help. All right, so Councilwoman asked me to speak tonight to give an overview of the mayor's introduced FY 2025 budget. And while, by charter the mayor introduces the budget, I would say, and I hope Councilwoman and others would agree, this has been one of our most collaborative budget processes in developing the budget and introducing it with input from council and the community on the front end for introduction. And we've just really appreciated the collaboration of Catherine, of Sven, of the whole team to make this possible this year. So we're really proud of what we have in the budget, but I'm excited after I get through this to hear your questions and get your feedback as well. All right, so this year's budget reflects a comprehensive approach to addressing the diverse needs of our residents, businesses, and visitors. It embodies our dedication to fiscal prudence, equitable distribution of resources, and strategic investments that foster growth and enhance the quality of life for all who call Richmond home. And it's a blueprint for realizing our shared vision of a resilient, prosperous, and equitable Richmond. And I promise that's the last slide I'm going to read. Go ahead, Sven. So let's talk about where we are as a community. As you'll see here, Richmond is the 22nd most fiscally stressed locality in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We often talk about comparisons with surrounding counties as well as other cities, and it's really important to look at this in the context of fiscal stress, right? Which is essentially a measure of locality's ability to generate revenue and resources for their government. Norfolk is in the category of high stress, whereas the city of Richmond is just on the line between high stress and above average stress. Now, our friends in the counties, Henrico and Chesterfield, are in the category of below average fiscal stress. I was just talking with School Board Member White a minute ago that, what is amazing to me, and I can't explain it, I can't understand it, is that in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we fund education using the local composite index, and for reasons that I can't explain or understand, Chesterfield and Henrico are viewed as having a lesser ability to pay for public education than the city of Richmond. So their LCI generates more revenue per student than the city of Richmond by a significant measure. And it really does put an additional challenge and fiscal stress on us as a city. Next slide. You'll also note that Richmond has the highest assessed value of tax-exempt property in the region. We have, let me see here, over $8.3 billion in real estate value that is tax-exempt in the city of Richmond. That stems from the fact that while we are honored to be the seat of government for the state, and as well as host a number of higher ed institutions, as well as other exempt groups such as faith-based organizations, etc. It does place additional burden on the remaining land in the city of Richmond and to serve as the tax base for all the city services that we provide for not just our residents, but for the Commonwealth and for our universities as well. We've been working over the last several years to strengthen our ability to use economic data. We've hired city economists to help advise the city, not just on revenue projections for the current fiscal year, but for future fiscal years as well. This year we are looking and anticipating slower growth than what we saw in fiscal years 24 and prior years, where we saw some significant growth in the city. Despite the increase in mortgage rates, we're still seeing strong demand though for housing. but at the same time, our inventory of available homes that are being put for sale is much lower than what we would essentially hope to see. In the construction industries, we're looking at higher interest rates as well as labor and building costs, and expected shortages in both of those areas will continue to constrain the economy. Go ahead. I'll actually go back to that one more time. The one I didn't touch on here is tourism. I will say this is an area where the city is seeing tremendous growth. The last year we surpassed the city's peak tourism from pre-pandemic, and then this year we exceeded that by another 7%. We are seeing tremendous interest in folks visiting the Richmond region and specifically the city. The city's total budget is $2.9 billion. You often hear us talk about the general fund and whether that was last year at $951 million, but it's important to note that the city of Richmond is a nearly $3 billion corporation, for lack of a better word. Between our general fund and our utilities, Ms. Bingham, as well as Richmond Public Schools and our capital improvement plan, we have significant investments between, over this year for the first time, city budget crossed $1 billion in the general fund. Richmond Public Schools represents $529 million. Our enterprise funds are $533 million, and our capital improvement plan is $460 million, amongst some other expenditure areas as well. We also, when folks look at the revenue growth over the city, there's, we all ask ourselves, why isn't there even more available for priorities, right? It's part of what I wanted to share tonight is that a huge portion of the city's revenue growth year over year gets used for our non-discretionary expenditures, things that are also rising in cost and that we have either contractual or other obligations to fund. Employee salaries and benefits are generally our largest expenditure. Our contribution to Richmond Public Schools is our second largest expenditure. And as I mentioned, a significant percentage is non-discretionary. So that would be things like our healthcare costs for our employees, as well as the cost of debt, like the payments that we're making on the debt the city has issued for our capital improvement plan. I love this slide because it really does help illustrate where your tax dollars go in the city of Richmond. You'll see here that general government is 7%. Our judicial investments represent 1 cent. Public safety is 20 cents of every dollar in tax revenue that the city collects. Education, though, is 24 cents. Recreation and culture, all of our investments in park and rec only represent 4 cents of every dollar. And other public services represent 21 cents on the dollar. Some highlights from this year's budget include $15.8 million incremental funding for Richmond Public Schools. $40 million is in our capital plan for supporting affordable housing projects across the city. We have $4.2 million in this year's budget to support homeless services. I hope many of you have seen or are aware of the additional beds that we've been able to add to the region's shelter system through the 150 beds for inclement weather, 50 of which are going to be year-round permanent shelter beds for individuals. And then we have a partnership with Home Again to provide 50 family beds at the former Richmond Hostel site on 2nd Street for families, so for adults with children. We also have $1 million for eviction diversion, additional investments for childcare, family crisis funding, our health equity trust fund, and the Richmond Resilience Initiative, as well as right to counsel for legal services for individuals facing eviction, $21 million for investments in our complete street network, so that would be paving, sidewalks, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and many of the street and neighborhood improvements that you've seen over the last few years. We have $15.6 million for the Fall Line Trail, We're also looking to expand upon the pilot park ranger program that was introduced a couple years ago and has been particularly helpful in monitoring and supporting our James River Park system. We want to add additional park rangers so that we can expand that to some of our other city parks like Bryan Park, Forest Hill, et cetera, et cetera. We have $13 million in this year's budget for the Shaco project, which I hope you also saw when that master plan was unveiled a few weeks ago down at the Main Street Station. That is to support the Heritage Campus as well as the National Slavery Museum. We received an additional $11 million from the Mellon Foundation to support an interpretive center for the Shaco project that will be in Main Street Station. We have over $4 million this year for improvements to city parks and community centers. Much of that is going to go into new or replacement playgrounds across the city. I think it's one of the best places where we can see the value of our investment in what it provides for our neighborhoods and our families. We also continue to make significant investments in our workforce. We would not be able to do what we do without the people who show up each and every day, particularly those who are on the front line, so to speak, whether it's our police officers and firefighters or our solid waste employees, our sidewalk crews, you name it. So this year we are raising the city's hourly minimum wage to $20 an hour. We are providing $5.7 million in the budget to provide a 4% general wage increase for all city general employees. General employees is essentially anyone who's not a sworn police officer or firefighter. In that space, we have $9.1 million for an average of a 7% increase for our police officers and firefighters. If I could touch on that just a little bit further, you may have seen that in the last couple of years, the city has authorized bargaining units of employees to enter negotiations with administration on contracts, collective bargaining agreements. In this setting, I can say I had apprehensions about how it would go and what the outcomes would be, but I'm very, very proud of what we were able to do together this year with our police union, with our fire union, and with one of our general employee unions. Much of what these agreements are based in is ensuring that the city is competitive in the market. So the way that we came up with the amount for what we need to invest in police and fire salaries is we looked at the average pay in the region across Henrico, Chesterfield, Hanover, and the city. And the city's obligation under our contract is to match the average of that pay and exceed it by 2% this year, 3% next year, 4% the year after. It is simply based in ensuring that we, the city, hold ourselves accountable, that we are going to stay competitive and ensure that our police officers and firefighters, as well as our general employees, are paid the wage that is fair and comparable for if they did this job in the city, or Henrico, or Hanover. I mentioned several of these investments before, but these are just some of the incremental city investments we're making in support for social programs for our Human Services Support Network. We have, again, $18.2 million for our additional partnerships with our public health partners. Richmond Ambulance Authority is in the budget for $7.1 million. I will say I appreciate your councilwoman for serving on the RAA board. She and I both serve on that board and work to support the Ambulance Authority to have the resources they need, just like in police and fire, to have the paramedics and EMTs to meet our needs when we have to call. We also have $6 million for the Richmond Behavioral Health Authority, and another $500,000 for the RBHA Foundation, and $4.6 million for the Richmond City Health District. Okay, sorry, go back one more time. So, the other thing that one of the central themes of this year's budget, in addition to investing in our employees and our workforce, is in improving city customer service. This has been an area that, I think there has been consistent work over the last several years to make these efforts, but we have to make additional financial investments to get where we want to go. Our 311 call center, if it doesn't have the necessary staffing, can't keep up with the call volume of individuals calling, needing help with getting services in the city. You've heard a lot of the challenges we've had within our finance department, and particularly the challenges they have with technology and systems not keeping up with the times. So we put an additional $3+ million into the implementation of RVA Pay and other systems that are meant to, quite frankly, bring us into the 21st century as a city with technology, and how, just as April in DPU is working to make it easier and efficient and clear to make your payments in DPU, we want to be able to do the same for all payment categories, all tax categories that people interact with us in the city. We continue to make significant investments in affordable housing. In addition to the $10 million we have programmed this year for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we have additional general fund grants of $8.1 million for various partners in housing and housing affordability. We have an investment of $5 million in the Creighton Court redevelopment in the city's East End. We have an additional $3.3 million that is tied to city performance grants. So a new program that the city is, and Sharon and her team deserve all the credit for this, that we are an innovator in and are leading, is we're now providing performance grants for folks who are building affordable housing. So rather than you build affordable housing and you are going to have to pay the full freight of property taxes, we've developed a formula so that it's fair and transparent, where when builders bring us projects, if they meet certain affordability thresholds as far as the percentage of units and or the deepness of the affordability that they are providing, they can receive up to 100% of their property taxes as a rebate each year. And that is, so that $3.3 million in performance grants, and again, that's essentially just revenue the city won't collect because of the rebate, created just as many units as our $10 million investment in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So while we need both, we need capital investments to support affordable housing projects getting off the ground. Performance grants are really key to keeping these projects sustainable and keeping the property owners able to make the investments to keep them affordable. All right, I feel like I've overdone my time here, so I'm going to try and go faster. $3.3 additional million in the budget for partners like Venture Richmond, Richmond Tourism. We have been working to expand and enhance our ability to provide neighborhood and community services with a reorganization within our Human Services Division. We would like to add neighborhood specialists that would work across the city and work specifically with civic associations, council representatives, and liaisons to make sure that we are getting information about what communities need and ensure that we are doing the coordination on the city's side, on the administrative side, to meet those needs. We also are working to develop a Department of General Services. We were lucky in the last few months, the state's Director of General Services, which oversees all state facilities, state fleet, etc., left the state, was interested in another opportunity. We snatched him up, Joe D'Amico, and he's been advising us on the city establishing its own Department of General Services. Most of the services here previously and historically have fallen under the Department of Public Works, which currently I think has 16 or 17 different divisions within the Department of Public Works. So splitting these out will enable us to be more strategic, focus on cost-saving opportunities for fleet, for capital projects, for our parking enterprise as well. I mentioned the investments in employee compensation, but as important in that is the expansions we're making in, we put it under the framework of becoming an employer of choice, but this is about how we support and provide the wraparound benefits for our employees that makes Richmond a desirable place to work. I think historically Richmond has not been an employer of choice, and I'm not ready to say that we are at our goal yet. But we want to be a place where people view as this is my top choice for where I want to go, either to start my career, to take the next step in my career, where I want to go because this is where I think my talents are going to provide the most benefit to my community. So in addition to the investments in salary, we've opened the first employee health clinic, which is essentially, runs the same as if you were to go to your doctor's office, but our employees can go to these clinics that we've done in partnership with Marathon Health, get access to primary care services, at, in most cases no charge to them, and also get things like prescriptions, x-rays, and a lot of other reference, of course, behavioral health support as well. I think I've already touched on the $20 an hour minimum wage. We want to set a minimum wage that is a leader and leads by example. I think now we're briefly getting into the capital budget. Our capital budget is made up not just of city general obligation bonds, but also it's also where a lot of our federal, state, and regional transportation funds go and then are used either in collaboration with some of our GO bonds to support transportation projects across the city. In the 5-year CIP, we have $120 million for affordable housing, the Shockoe project, as well as improvements to Browns Island, $212 million for school construction and renovation, $61.8 million for fleet for public safety, particularly police and fire, and $435.7 million in planned projects over 5 years for transportation. That includes our complete streets funding, the Fall Line Trail, and major street redevelopment such as what is planned for Whole Street. The schools funding breaks down between $200 million for school modernization, so for new school facilities, and $2.5 million for school capital maintenance this year and going forward. Shockoe project, as I shared earlier, the master plan was presented and released in February 2024. We have the $11 million grants from the Mellon Foundation and $23.1 million in the CIP over the next, I believe, 2 fiscal years to support the first phase of the Shockoe project. $10 million is also in the CIP for improvements to Browns Island that we're doing in partnership with Venture Richmond. I hope some of you saw the story last night that ran covering the partnership between the city and Venture, where essentially on a $30 million project, the city has committed to match half. We have $10 million in now. Once they raise the match, the city would propose putting in an additional $5 for them to then raise an additional $5 to match. And that $30 million will enable them to make significant improvements to Browns Island to make it, there's no permanent restrooms on Browns Island today, and ADA accessibility is limited beyond what we would like to see. There's a lot of planned improvements there that I would encourage everybody to go look at Venture's plan, and we're excited to be part of it. All right, I think I'm wrapping it up here. We have $1.5 million in the general fund budget this year for parks improvements, but we also have $3.4 million for capital maintenance. And in addition to this 1.5, council is currently considering some reallocations of other funds to provide an additional $3 million for improvements in playgrounds at city parks. Fall Line Trail, Whole Street improvements. Let's get past the CSO. I think, Catherine, unless you think there's anything I've missed, I'm going to try and wrap it up because I want to make sure there's time for sharing.
And we can also, we'll make the full presentation available with the recording as well, if you want to take a look.
So, Catherine, do you want me to take questions now, or okay? We'll be glad to answer any questions I can.
And again, happy to pass around the mic if you'd like, so just raise your hand and I'll bring it to you.
It's really not a question, I'm probably misunderstanding the budget brief. Do you have it there?
I can.
The question I really have is on page 3, there are 2 pie charts. One is revenue sources and one is expenditure. The part that I'm confused with is the revenue sources. It seems like those are the expenditures, if I'm reading it right. For example, you have Richmond Public Schools, $529 million. How would that be a revenue source? And then you have $529 million as an expenditure for Richmond Public Schools. So again, I'm probably not understanding.
Well, I will say I can understand the confusion in this. Part of the challenge is, or it's not the challenge, but in the city we have obviously our revenues in, and then sometimes our revenues out, and that can get viewed. You could view it as almost a double counting with when it's going to another partner like an RPS. So on the revenue side, in addition to the city tax dollars that are going there, and to be honest, I'm gonna need to go back and look at this chart and make sure, there's no errors there for me to correct, but, we have, in addition to the city revenues, there's also federal and state revenues that support Richmond Public Schools that are passed through the city, so it comes in as a revenue and then out as an expenditure.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's, but that's really not, I don't want to, I love the presentation. That's not really accurate because your 529 is all inclusive of all the funding sources. But you're including the local contribution. I can understand that you put the state there,
As a revenue.
but you're including everything, so it doesn't really line up.
All right, let me follow up with you on that. Let me go. I'll talk to our budget team and see if make sure there's nothing I'm missing in how they're considering it. But your point's valid, I think. We should look at
Did
that.
Steve want to-
I have two questions.
Oh, sorry, that's yours back.
One is about the fall line. You have two different prices for the fall line funding in the state. One place you say it's 15.6 million, and a different place in the cityscape you say it's 6.2 million. So how much are we spending on the fall line this year?
So can you point out which ones you're looking at?
Yes. On page 2, it says, 15.6 million for the fall line.
So I think the short answer on that is we have 6.2 in the current fiscal year, and the 5-year CIP includes the larger number, the 16 million. So we have 6.2 in the current fiscal year, but when we do our capital improvement plan, it's a 5-year plan. So we have money programmed for each of the next several years.
I find that confusing. That's okay. Then
I get that, yeah.
And my second question is specifically about the neighborhood that I have before. Is there a money in the current budget for an extensive, complete traffic study of the Diamond District to include the TIF and the Westwood intersection before the Diamond District and the plans to get, finalized?
I'm going to bring up Ms. Ebert to answer this question because it bleeds into our other topic, but I'll let her answer.
Thank you, Lincoln.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sharon Eber. I'm a Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the city. And unlike April, who says she has the best job, I have the best job. I oversee all the city's planning, housing, and economic development. And we've already done a traffic impact analysis and have the report. So we're a little bit ahead of you. We haven't come out to the community yet because we're still doing an internal staff review. We got it a few weeks ago from an outside consultant. It includes all of the activities that are either planned or under construction right now that surround the Diamond District. That includes that triangular parcel. That includes the Quality Inn / Roadway Inn that's coming down. There's an apartment project planned for that. And it does go all the way up to where Arthur Ashe and Hermitage should meet. And that includes all the traffic intersections all the way down to Lee Street. So it takes into the entire area.
Does it go up to the Westwood intersection or does it go to Westwood?
Westwood comes into Arthur Ashe, right? Yes.
Any other budget-related questions before we head over and make Diamond District is up next?
I do, I think.
What is included in that 1 million for eviction? What is that? What does that consist of?
So the question from Ms. Webb was what is included in the 1 million for eviction diversion. So this is a tougher one to answer because we are currently going through a transition, but several years ago, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, the city and Home Housing Opportunities Made Equal entered a partnership where they would become the administrator of a new city eviction diversion program. And essentially, when individuals are in court facing an eviction, it provides essentially a pathway for them to work with Home to get I guess, fundings to do the down payment on their arrears to avoid actually being evicted. But it has additional requirements like participating in financial literacy and et cetera, additional supports. But the nonprofit comes in, helps to settle with the landlord, and then the individual, the household, is part of a down payment and then has responsibilities to make up the additional payments.
But it's not in effect right now.
It is.
It is?
Yes, but the reason I said it was in transition is, so Housing Opportunities Made Equal is stepping away because they're refocusing on some other policy areas. And so we currently, I think, have an RFP out for another nonprofit partner to pick up the program in the next year. And I think we've had a lot of interest from partners in the community to step into that role going forward. Yes. So any individual facing eviction in the city would be able to take advantage of it. There are, I will say, we have two programs that complement each other. One is our Family Crisis Fund, where individuals can get help with, one time up to $2,500 to support some of their, if they have, unforeseen medical bills or, have fallen behind on a Dominion bill or rent, and we can hopefully support them in getting stabilized before they are facing an eviction notice or an eviction court. And then eviction diversion is really for those who are at that stage where they've been served an eviction notice and are trying to not have that be fully executed.
Thank you so much, City Saunders, and hopefully this helps give a little bit more narrative to the budget that we're in the process of. Each council member will be submitting amendments if we find it necessary, so do reach out to our office. The business cards, if you don't already have our contact information, are on the table that you walk by to come in. And without much more further ado, we're going to transition to the Diamond District discussion. And one of the goals of mine in office was to try and connect residents to the decision makers. And so these meetings are meant to take away a layer so you can hear what I'm hearing when I'm making my decisions on things impacting the second district in the city. So I'm really grateful that DCO Sharon Ebert is here today to talk about the Diamond District, and she was the one who called to tell me that she had great news for me about how we were changing the financing. So I'll let her relive that conversation for each of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. So again, good evening, everybody. I also want to introduce that this is a public-private partnership, and our partners are here today as well. We have Jason Gilo. Jason, you want to stand up? Jason is the master developer. He's renamed his team the Diamond District Partners LLC. Alheimer Realty Partner is the managing member of that LLC. His staff, Michael Gaza, is also here. I want to thank Michael. Jason and Michael have been working around the clock. I'm sorry, Jason. Oh, Marcus is here. Yes. I'm sorry. Nice to see you. Thank you for going. An architect that's working with the team, KEI Architects. So thank you very much for coming. Jay Smith is here. Jay is your communications consultant. Who else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing somebody. Carol is here. From J&G Workforce Development. Nice to see you here, Carol. So without further ado, I just want to introduce everybody. So if you do have questions after my brief presentation, do know that there are other people here in the audience that can help answer questions as well. So let's begin. So why we are doing the project, I know I've been receiving some emails that says we don't need a new stadium. For any of you who have been in the new stadium, it is an old stadium. It's almost 40 years old. It is in dire need of improvements. We really can't renovate it and meet the MLB requirements for this type of baseball. And we've promised the Flying Squirrels for over 14 years that we would get them a new stadium. When we did the Richmond 300 plan and the Greater Scotts Addition small area plan, there was community support for us to keep the Flying Squirrels here in Richmond and to build a new stadium. And so we are. Next slide. So this is much more than just a stadium. As you can see, there's 67 acres here, and except for the sales and mills tax and admission tax sales revenues, this is all publicly owned and not producing real property taxes or any real revenue for the city. And so the city has an opportunity to build a brand new neighborhood here, a mixed-use, mixed-income neighborhood that reflects the values of our great city. It will still have a signature Central Park, and we're also keeping all the community benefits. I know a lot of people have said to us, oh, why don't you just sell it and make lots of money like everybody else is buying up real estate in and around here. And yeah, we could have done that, but that does not reflect our values. We want to make sure this is an inclusive development. We want it to be a model example for the rest of the country to try to emulate. And so we had some really tight community benefits. One of them is 40% minority business enterprise requirements. We also have 40% union labor for the stadium and the public infrastructure. We have 25% union labor for the privately financed developments. 20% of all the residential units will be affordable to households earning an average of 60% of the area median income. And we're working with the Housing Authority to get up to 100 project-based vouchers so that we can also provide housing for families at the lower income tier of 30% of the area income. And then there's partnerships. There's partnerships that the developer is having with Virginia Union University to help create a Diamond District Small Business Institute and a revolving loan fund. And then we're trying to make this the most sustainable new development. So dealing with stormwater on site, making sure that the buildings are energy efficient and meet at least the LEED level of LEED certification. So a lot of requirements that we've put on the developer, they're still there, and we're still able to do this project. So some of the changes to this as we've been going through this, you know, last spring, this time, we brought the development agreement before council and it was adopted and we were moving forward. And then if any of you can remember last year, inflation was getting out of control. The Federal Reserve was constantly raising interest rates to try to curtail the inflation, and things have stabilized a little bit this year, but it's been a roller coaster in terms of trying to make this work financially. One of the concessions that we made as we were starting to develop the stadium, the Squirrels wanted a more active role, and so we worked it out that the Flying Squirrels, their parent company, which is called the Navigators, are now the developer in charge of the design and construction of the stadium. This gives them greater control over making sure that they can bring us what I call a world-renowned stadium. I think if you've seen anything in BizSense, you'll be very pleased once the stadium gets built. And they're being managed, the design firm is Odell, and the overall project management is the Machete Group. Oh, could you go back just one little slide? Thank you. And then as I mentioned before, RBA Diamond Partners has now been reformulated, and it's just Tolheimer Real Property, our local development team, and Loop Capital, which is a national banking investment and equity firm, and also a minority-owned business. So just a brief update. One of the major changes to this plan and a concession on the developer's part is that they don't get to develop all 67 acres. The city is now going to take on the financing, which I'll talk to in a minute, but the developer in the original development agreement had the rights to develop all 67 acres, and they were doing so with 4 phases. And once they met the development milestones for phase 1, they were able to then purchase at a predetermined price, phase 2, then phase 3, then phase 4. Now we have just got phase 1. Phase 1 does have 3 purchases for land. However, it is about just under 50% of the overall land. And then the rest of the land will be owned by the EDA, and that future development will happen once the first phase is completed. And right now we're estimating that that first phase, which is going to start later this year, will probably go through 2034. So it's a 10-year build out. Here, as you can see on the chart, there's additional units that are going to be built. We want to make sure that when the stadium comes up, that the land surrounding the stadium will be a complete neighborhood, so that you get the feel of what this new neighborhood is going to be like. There's additional commercial in the first phase than what was originally negotiated in the previous development agreement. Next slide. So here's where we were a couple of months ago, as we were trying to determine how to get the CDA bond issuance to work. We were having difficulties looking at continuing rising interest rates, placing it in the market, and the earliest that we felt that we could get it into the market was September, and that was based on the fact that we needed completed stadium design. It had to be a guaranteed maximum price by the contractor. We had to have building permits basically pulled before we could get the underwriters for the CDA bond to issue that. And that's because it's an unrated bond. And we would be creating a new Diamond District CDA, which is one of the papers that is before council for consideration. Because what we brought to council was, you can do it this way with the CDA bond, but we've looked at it with our financial advisors, which is Davenport, and their recommendation to us was that it's a very costly and risky way to do the bonds. And given where we are with interest rates today, it is actually a greater cost savings to the city and the taxpayers to do just a general obligation bond. And so what you see here on the screen is that if we do a general obligation bond, and these are still revenue bonds. So if I can put on a slide, and it's going to come up, you'll see that it was a CDA revenue bond, and by that I mean that the revenues generated from the stadium, the sales tax, the meals tax, the admissions tax, the revenues generated from the real property taxes of all the private development, and any sales and meals tax from the restaurants and other retail that's going to get built here, are what is going to pay for that bond. It is not existing revenue that the city has, so we're not taking away from our revenue base, we're actually adding in revenue. And it's the same approach with issuing it as a GO bond, it's just that it costs a lot less. Specifically, it's going to reduce the debt service payments by about $215 million over the 30-year term of the bond, and that means instead of that money going to pay debt service, it's going into the general fund. Also, as we were watching the General Assembly this winter, we realized that there is a state sales tax incentive that's associated with tourism and specifically with sports arenas, etc. And normally, every year, the General Assembly and the governor recommends to extend that. This year, they have decided to sunset it. That sales tax incentive will sunset by July 1st of this year. And again, using a CDA bond, there's just absolutely no way we were going to get bonds issued before that. Our advisors has told us just doing a city bond, we will be able to get it issued in June. That allows us to tap into $24 million of state sales tax revenue that we wouldn't have to forego if we used the CDA bond. And that again would have meant more tax general revenue, special revenue coming from the Diamond District to pay back the bonds. Blue ribbon here is very important because what we're doing is we're generating new revenue with this project and the new private development. That means that our revenue is going up. It's not impacting our current revenue. Therefore, it's not impacting our debt affordability. This does not impact the projects in our CIP pipeline. It does not impact school budget for new construction. Next slide. Here's a great way to look at it. As you can see, the CDA revenue bond is on your left. Yes, your left. And we were going to be paying $314 million in interest on that bond. And with doing a general obligation city-backed bond, we're going to only be paying about $110 million in interest. And that's where the $215 million of debt service savings generates from. And that's primarily because two things. City bond, we have a AA+ rating. We can get our bonds sold very quickly in the market, and we can sell them at 4% interest. CDA bond, unrated bond, is going to be at least an 8% bond interest rate, and it could be much higher. Next slide. So I talked about being able to get this accomplished by June 30th. But this also eliminates the expanded TIF. I don't know if any of you are aware, the CDA boundaries are just the 67 acres. With the CDA bond last year, the council adopted development agreement, we expanded the TIF beyond the 67 acres to include the parcels of land that were on the, let me get my directions right, west side of Arthur Ashe Boulevard and on the east side of Hermitage. We no longer need that expanded TIF area. So all of those revenues will go back into the general fund and are not needed to support any of the debt service. And last but not least, we had infrastructure, and this is one of the things that I don't think people understand. We're going to be doing 2 bond issuances. Total of $170 million. Stadium is $130 million. Again, that will be paid back with the new tax revenues that are generated by the Phase 1 development. And then there's an infrastructure, public infrastructure bond, new utilities, new streets, new park space. That's about a $40 million bond. In last year's council adopted development agreement, the funding sources for that was coming from $10.8 million of land proceeds that the EDA was going to put back into to help pay for that infrastructure. There was $23.7 million in a CIP that was going to be issued. That would have been general obligation bonds for the infrastructure. There was an existing 2.3 CIP line item in this year's 24 budget that we were going to use towards the infrastructure. So most of that public infrastructure was already going to be city money. What we've decided is to free all of that up, and instead it is actually, again, going to be cheaper to do a city geo bond for the public infrastructure. Here's again a couple of quick graphs to be able to show you. In addition to the $80 million bond, CD bond, which is shown in the light blue, there was actually a subordinate developer's bond of $20 million that had to be paid back as well. And the important areas to look at are the green shaded areas. So we could do a CDA bond. It will yield about $196 million of surplus revenue to the city. But if we do the city issued bond, that green shaded area represents $418 million of surplus revenue to the city. So to us, from a financial perspective, it seems more prudent to go with the GEO bond. What is the risk? There is risk. and I said this the other night to the council, nothing is without risk in life. Every time you walk out the door or you sit in your chair, for those of you who knew I broke my arm earlier this year, you know, you can fall anytime. But we don't think this has greater risk. We believe this has lower risk. The risk is that none of the private development ever gets built. And I don't know about you, but I've been watching development in the Scotts Addition area and the greater Scotts Addition area, and I think we can just look right across the street. That development is all around here. Every day you pick up the newspaper and you see another planned development. Feedmore is under contract to sell their property on the other side of where the VCU Athletic Village is going to go. They're planning 181 new 2-over-2 condos. There is more apartment buildings coming here. There's a brand new hotel that's going to be built on the old Hardy site. So it is just a ton of development, but the risk is that no development gets built here. Therefore, there's no property tax revenues being generated, no sales tax or meals tax from restaurants. I'm betting that that happens. I'm betting on our developer partner that they're going to be able to build and create that revenue. And that revenue from phase 1 is what we need to pay back the stadium bonds. Next. So it's a special revenue bond. I've been trying to explain that for a long time. This talks about the fact that it is backed by the full faith and credit of the city. We said 1,000 times we weren't going to do this. So I want to be honest with everybody. We did not think we could do this, and we didn't think we could do this because we thought it would impact our current CIP and our ability to fund schools. And our financial advisor said, no, it doesn't. This is special new revenue coming in. Again, it's not the existing revenue, it's the revenue that's going to be generated by all the private development here. And it won't impact our existing revenues. But if all that didn't happen, the city would be basically responsible for $7 million a year debt service payment. I figured that out based on our $1 billion general fund budget this year. That's 0.00017% of our $1 billion budget, in case you want to do math. Next slide. So, I'm not sure the last slide showed this, but the stadium lease payments are paying for the infrastructure now. So we get lease payments from the Squirrels. We're working on finalizing our lease agreement with them. But all of the lease payments, the Squirrels lease payments to operate this, because I've heard, we're doing this and they're getting, the stadium for free. No, they're not getting the stadium for free. They're paying for the stadium. They're paying, I think when I tallied up everything, it was about $68 million over 30 years that those lease payments. So they're paying for that infrastructure for phase 1. Next. Timeline. If the council does approve the papers before them, and I believe you're going to continue them to May 8th so that they can all be in line with the CDA paper. We hope to be able to issue the bonds the 3rd week in June, break ground in the 4th week of June. We'll be coming out to the community shortly in May with both a traffic impact analysis report to talk more in depth about some of the recommendations on how we can handle traffic. And to be honest with you, don't forget, we already have a stadium and stadium event traffic. Most of the new traffic is not even coming from the Diamond District development. It's coming from all of the development that's happening and that's planned to happen here in the next 5 years. And we're also going to be coming out with the community with something called Public Realm Design Standards. What will the streetscapes look like? What will signage look like, et cetera, et cetera. So we will be out in the community in the next 3 months. We hope to issue the infrastructure bonds shortly after we issue the stadium bonds. Site work is planned to start in July. We got some dirt to move around and some underground utilities that currently exist that need to be moved or and relocated. And then the private development will start in 2025, and we hope to start the vertical construction of the stadium later this fall. And I am here to answer any questions you may have.
My question is, where would those affordable houses be located?
So they're located within the Diamond District. Within the first phase, there's 3 site locations when you're looking at the overall site plan. I'm going to defer to Jason. I believe the first one is on a block that we've labeled E3. It's right adjacent to where the new stadium is going to be built. And I want to say that's going to be complete in 2027. Is that the right completion date? I'm doing that off of memory. Thank you, Jason.
So where we're at right now, can you point to where it would be
Yeah.
located?
Yes, ma'am. Like right that.
Right over there. Yeah.
So if this, here's the ballpark, right? Here's Arthur Ashe Bridge, right here. Thank you. So basically, right next to the ballpark, over in this direction.
And so those, homes will, I know you said 100, you will get 100, applicants from HUD.
100 vouchers.
Will they still pay taxes on the property?
So, I'm not quite sure I'm following you. What we're trying to do is work with Richmond Redevelopment Housing Authority to be able to project-based vouchers. That means they stick with the project, they're not portable. That some of them would go to that first location, which if I'm pointing is this structure here. Then there's also going to be affordable housing built up here, and a portion of this building will also have affordable housing. It's going to be integrated as the whole project is built out. Most of phase 1 is everything south of what is going to be Sherwood Avenue, with the exception of these 2 blocks and this block, which is right now sitting where this existing stadium is located.
Let's move our way around the room.
So how many housing units are there going to be?
1,693 in phase 1.
Okay, so if 20% of them are going to be low income or affordable houses, and 100 of them are going to be at 30% AMI,
Up to, yeah.
and 20% of them, the 20% are going to be at an average of 60%. That means you're going to have a 100 at 30% AMI, and you're going to have 100 at 90% AMI. So
Yeah, so
really
that-
and truly, how much affordable housing are you going to build?
20%. So the 30% units are a subset of the 20%.
So
Okay?
it's 90%.
No. So it's 100, we have up to 100 vouchers. That is across the entire 67 acres. A portion of that will be with the units that we built in the first phase. But on the overall project, they will be distributed over the entire project. This is just phase 1.
Let's do the math again. If you're gonna do 20% of all of the units are gonna be affordable.
Affordable with an average household income of 60% AMI.
Right,
So 60% of AMI, do you know what that is?
yes.
Okay.
No, I don't, what is?
So right now, a household of 4 people earning 100% of AMI are making, it's an area median income. So HUD comes out and explains across the country what the area median income is for any metropolitan statistical area. So Greater Richmond, I'm getting there, is 100% of AMI for a family of 4, and that's sort of where they peg it at, is just under $110,000.
for a family of 4.
How much is it in the city of Richmond? It was 57,000.
But we have, you're right, it's lower, but we have to use HUD's benchmark, okay? So you have to use HUD's benchmark. We can't dispute that. So it's it's just under $110 million, $110,000 for a family of 4. So 50% of that, obviously, would be somewhere around $55,000 for a family of 4. And I think you can kind of do the math. So if we're averaging a household of 4, and then there's a sliding scale. So if you're one individual, you're probably down closer to $27,000, $29,000. Two people in a household or greater. But we can share with you what those HUD incomes are. And I guess I'm not following your question, ma'am, because you're shaking your head.
If you have 200 units that are gonna be affordable, basic, you have 100 total units, 1,000 total units, 20% of them are going to be affordable. So just to do math easy, say 200 are going to be affordable. And 100 of them are gonna hopefully be at 30% AMI, which is lovely. Then the other 100, in order to get an average of 60%, can be at 90% AMI.
Yeah, that's not how the covenants work, but I understand where you're trying to go, just to balance out the swing. Yeah, I understand where you're going. But that's not how the formula works, but I do understand your point, thank you.
Other questions?
Did you put the slides on the website or on the Facebook page or whatever? And also, there were a lot of initials that I didn't understand at all. And if they could be spelled out, it would be very helpful.
Good point. Yes, we will try not to use acronyms and try to spell out words so that everybody knows, because government is just alphabet soup when it comes to putting acronyms on everything. So I agree with that. And Petula, if I'm not mistaken, this is already up on our website. Yeah, but it's also up on the Diamond website under rva.gov. Yeah, Google Diamond District, and it usually comes right up if you use Google as a search engine.
I have two questions. One is, when we're talking about housing rights or housing units, we're talking about rentals as well as home ownership.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, Janice, because the original Phase 1 plan, because again, looking backwards a year and a half ago, there was a point in time when we weren't so sure that for sale was going to be bankable. Fast forward to today, and as I just spoke about with the Feedmore site being sold and the developer plans to build 181 condos there, Phase 1, I believe, has 24 condo units planned as of today. Is that correct?
Minimum. That's a minimum, and we're currently probably planning to increase that number.
And my second question, I'm switching gears, is back to when you first started the presentation, you were talking about some minimum requirements in regards to the MGE and all of that. And then you went on to say the project is now broken into two components, the stadium and the rest of the development. Do those guidelines hold for both sets of the project?
They absolutely do. They absolutely do, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Just raise your hand, I can bring the mic to you if you have another question.
With the influx of the number of people that are gonna be living here, what about the schools?
So that's a good question. And I don't know if everybody heard her, but she said with so many families, people moving into the area, what about the schools? We meet quarterly with Jason Camaros and his planning staff. And he informs us that north of the river, there actually is surplus capacity in a number of the schools, and where they're actually feeling a need to build additional schools is actually south of the river. So right now, you know, he doesn't feel there's a need, but like I said, we do meet with him on a quarterly basis to go over all the planned development because there is so much coming here.
Thank you so much, and Sven, thank you for running a great meeting as always. Want to give special thanks to him and to all the staff who spent this evening with us. So Ebert, thank you. Jason from Paulheimer, appreciate you being here. All of this information will be on our website. This recording will be up on the YouTube page. And do you mind turning turn the back on? Thank you. Yeah, so the project team, if you're on the project team for the Diamond District, can you raise your hand? All right, so we have a lot of folks here. If you want to continue talking to them, have some more specific questions, want to look at the boards more closely, now's your chance. And our next meeting will be we're hoping at the training center. This wasn't talked about tonight, but the training center is being turned into headquarters for Parks and Rec. So really excited about that additional programming in the district. It's a beautiful facility. We look to be having our Parks and Rec director talk about upcoming things at that meeting. Again, if you have budget comments or more comments about Diamond District, feel free to send it to our office.